Hello, I'm Professor Dawson, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite parts of writing a story, and that's crafting leads. I really think that a lead, that first paragraph in the story, is like a Rubik's Cube in journalism. You can twist it and turn it and adjust one word or two and make it, you play with it as if it's a puzzle. Let's look at exactly how we do that. The lead's role is to hook the reader, and there are many different ways you can do that. You can tease the reader. Listen to the way they did it in the Wall Street Journal. Although it's too early in this article to discuss orgies, suffice it to say that sea slugs are much more interesting creatures than they might at first appear. Wouldn't you have to read on to find out what the sea slugs are up to? And listen to this one. Thank God for Anthony Bourdain, because we now know what it's like to eat a cobra's still beating heart. Oh my gosh, there's no way I could stop and go unload the dishwasher or walk the dog after reading a lead like that. The lead will take you to the essence of the story. You need to use some of your 5 W's and the H. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And you have to have the time element in the lead if it's a news story. The lead will provide a roadmap for your readers. Make the piece digestible and easy to understand. There's a lot of competition for your reader's time. Give her a reason to read this story. Let her know where you're going with it. Don't surprise her at the end with a new development. If you really don't clue the reader into what's going on in the lead, if you tease a little bit, like with that Anthony Bourdain lead about the cobra's still beating heart, then the nut graph is the lead's buddy, its best friend. That's where you need to make sure that the reader really understands why he or she's reading the story, why it matters, why it makes a difference in anyone's life. The nut graph will come before, probably by the 5th paragraph, if not before. That's where you wrap up all the context of the story. If you don't get right to the point with the story lead, bolster it with that paragraph. The lead should set the tone. Is this a story that's sweetly sentimental? Is it funny? Is it sarcastic? Is it deadly serious? And is it urgent that you know this information? The lead should reflect that. Make every word count in the lead. Translate for the reader. Read over your notes before you begin to write the lead. Look at all the information you have and squeeze the juice out of it. The best stuff goes at the top because that's your opportunity to hook the reader. If the lead's confusing, nobody will read on. Your lead should not be about what the story is not about. Sometimes writers will write a lead that says something like, you would expect Jim Jones to be a tall Texan wearing boots and a hat and having a horse tied out front. He's not. Well, why waste our time with the words telling us what he's not? Tout leads. If you write about something as being the biggest, the best, the most incredible, the story usually disappoints. And that's not our job anyhow. We're not out to promote anything. We're just telling about it. Suitcase leads. When we first started talking about leads, I mentioned that they include parts of the who, what, where, when, why, and how. But they don't include everything. Just tell a bit of the story in the lead. Get to the news. Get to what's going to grab the reader. You have the rest of the story to follow up with the rest. Look at this. From achieving global anti-poverty targets to tackling climate change and other critical environmental issues, the bloc of developing nations known as the Group of 77 in China has a vital role to play in ensuring progress on a host of priorities on the United Nations agenda. Look at that long dependent clause at the beginning. You don't know where that's going, who's speaking, and what we're talking about. Watch out. Leading with a question. Rarely do they work because what if your reader says no? Ever wondered what happened to Tom Mix? Most people don't. The famous movie Cowboy of Yesterday is not a familiar name among today's movie goers. But ask a teenager about George Clooney and you'll get a complete biography. At the point where you've said, ever wondered what happened to Tom Mix, a lot of your readers will have already moved on and said, nope, I don't know who it is, I'm out of here. How do you find the lead? Remind yourself of the focus of the story. What's the story about? What do you want readers to understand? Then take Ernest Hemingway's advice. A long time ago, a young writer, went out fishing with Ernest Hemingway, hoping to learn a little bit about how the master really tackled his writing. He asked Ernest Hemingway about how he really took the reader along with him on a story. Hemingway said, look and see what happens today when we're fishing. Look at how you react, how you feel when the line grows taut in your hand, when sprinkles of water pop off the line, when we flop the fish into the hull of the boat. Where do you feel the most excitement? Where do you feel the most joy? Capture that, the details that led to that feeling. Write about those, and your reader will probably feel the same way. It works. So how do you compose the lead once you've gathered some great facts? Close the gap between what you know and the words you'll write. Mentally dissect the story. As you mentally dissect all the information in the story, look at where's the conflict? What's the effect this story should have on readers? Should it leave them laughing or crying or demanding change in their world? What's the tone of the story? Analyze these elements. What's the most important? What do you want the reader to come away with? How much of a role does each characteristic play? What should be emphasized to really get to the heart of the story? Will that accomplish your original goals for the story, what you wanted the reader to come away with? Word placement is key. There are positions of word power in sentences and paragraphs. The first and the last word of every sentence and paragraph have a lot more phonetic strength. Think about the words you use there and play with that as you would a Rubik's Cube, and you'll see that you can really strengthen your writing. Look at this lead. As Phyllis Tabor's estranged husband threatened to cut off her head with a butcher knife, she said he repeatedly professed his love for her. You have the sense of intimacy of having the woman's name. She's somebody we want to care about. And then estranged husband threatened to cut off her head with a butcher knife. Yet then you have the conflict of him professing his love for her. Play with the language. Have fun within the framework of the facts. This is where you can take your story as a potter takes a ball of clay and make your own temporary piece of art with it. Here was the lead from a story that dealt with an unseasonably early freeze. Overnight, your garden turned from Monet to mush. As sub-freezing temperatures stalked the yard like an agricultural assassin, your dahlias and canna lilies probably turned black. Marigolds and geraniums drooped into nasty gray-brown blobs. You can't guess at any of that. Reporting's required for all of it. If you just decided that marigolds and geraniums drooped into nasty gray-brown blobs and they really were sort of a army green or something like that, you would lose credibility with half your readers who were gardeners. You have to make sure that all your facts are right, even if it's a matter of an adjective. Read your lead aloud. It's the only way you'll be able to catch the rhythm, the flow, to really get the feel for it. Does it set the proper tone? Do you think it's going to leave the reader laughing or sobbing or demanding change? Does it tell what the story's about? Do key words in the story push visceral buttons? Think back to that lead about Phyllis Tabor's estranged husband threatening to cut off her head with a butcher knife. If your lead does all of that, you've done your job. You've grabbed your reader by the shirt collar and pulled them into the story. Now move on to the rest of the story.